for those who don't know, Danielle is referring to this ABC poll that came out Monday, which said that a majority of Americans, and you said 63%, think that Biden hasn't done enough. And then in the head-to-head right now, that Trump apparently is beating Biden by 2%.
And it's just like, I'm like, who's doing the polls? Who's asking the questions? What are the questions being asked? Who are they asking them to? What time of day are they asking? Are they sending them via text? Are they sending them via email? Or are they picking up the phone? All of these things matter, right? And I want people to understand, like, that's how pollsters get paid. All of this stuff matters, right? And it matters because based on the time of day, how you're reaching out and who you're reaching out to will determine the outcome of those polls, right?
And
it's
a lot
not
of those
science.
And a lot of those folks who aren't being interviewed, they look like us. And it's a good point that you made, bringing things full circle about the media's role in not depicting the accurate state of our union is, I've said this on your show before, I've said this on Twitter, I've said this on MSNBC and CNN. I said, you know what I would really love? I would love one major newspaper or one news outlet to commission one story where they ask Trump voters to go into urban diners and ask the rest of us about our economic anxiety and why we voted for Biden. The year is now 2023, Danielle, and that article has still not dropped. That segment has still not dropped. Dear Republican voters, dear MAGA, have you gone to the urban diners and asked the blacks and the browns why they came out in historic numbers to vote for Biden during a pandemic? Have you reached out and tried to understand their economic anxiety? Not a single article to this day, Danielle. And that tells you everything, right? They never ask us about our feelings about the State of the Union. They never ask us whenever they're doing research on the average suburban voter. What does the average suburban voter think about Glenn Youngkin protecting parents' rights and banning books when it comes to the CRT and the wokeness attack, which now has become the tip of the spear for the 2024 Republican election, which I predicted 2 years ago, but our curse, Danielle, is that we are consistently right. If you and I were aggressively and arrogantly wrong about everything, maybe we'd be overpaid consultants in DC. But speaking about the polls, what we said last summer on this show was defense of democracy and abortion rights are kitchen table issues. And fast forward to polls that came out after the 2022 elections, Danielle. What ended up being a top 5 issue? Defense of democracy, protecting women's rights. And so I feel like when it comes to the State of the Union and Democrats, overpaid Democratic establishment, what they're flexing on is, look, Infrastructure Act, wonderful, flex. Inflation Reduction Act, wonderful, flex. Powell came out and said, we might avert recession. Inflation might be reduced. Awesome. Gas prices are down. Awesome. But what I want Biden to do is to throw down aggressively in the shortest month of the year, Black History Month, February, and talk about what's happening in the culture war. Because if you aren't going to fight the culture war, then damn it, you are convincing yourself that you're literally going to lose. If you don't fight a culture war, you're going to lose. They're banning books. They're going after librarians. They're going after Black authors. They're going after Black textbooks. They're going after Black bodies. And we still haven't heard enough about what are Democrats doing for police reform? What are Democrats doing for voting rights of people of color? And what are Democrats doing to protect our stories and our history? And the reason why they aren't touching that, Danielle, is because they believe that if they touch the culture war, they're going to lose white voters. So that's the State of the Union according to the rest of us.
And here's what I would love. Recognize that you've already lost white voters. You've lost the racist ones, because the ones that actually care about progress, the ones that actually care about, their children being able to read all sorts of books and about all sorts of history, because they want their children to be competitive in the world, right? The people who care about whether or not their neighbor down the street can vote, the people that are thankful for all the people that have helped them during COVID, the health professionals that are an array of ethnicities and races, right? If you are afraid of losing white people, let's be clear. You should not give a fuck about losing the 30% of racist, homophobic, transphobic, Islamophobic, misogynist, right? Racist white people. They are gone. There is a whole other bunch that are a part of the new American majority, that are a part of the global majority, right? And I'll tell you this, Waj, I know that the crusade that they are raging on anti-blackness and anti-trans, that is going to be their 2024 platform. And they're not going to win, right? Like, they won't. Because the reality is that what works in Florida and what works in Texas does not play nationally. And all we have to do, our job, right, as people with microphones, right, all Democrats have to do is show people what they've done already.
That's it.
And
That's
say,
it.
you want this nationalized? This is a guy, right, who put a 15-week ban on abortion. You want him in the White House? This is a guy who wants to give everyone a conceal and carry. Imagine that in your state, in New York, in California, right? Like, imagine that in our quote unquote blue states. That's what Ron DeSantis wants to do, right? It's not so difficult to just, and that's what I wish that this State of the Union would be, and this is what mine is, to air out their bullshit.
that's
right?
You and me are on the same page.
That's it. Just
Flex.
air it out.
Flex. When they go high, we go low. No, we bear crawl, we take out their knees. You can flex about your accomplishments, but as we know in the media news cycle, it's not enough. Just going back to the poll that you cited, you have to compare and contrast. You have to articulate and craft the message and tell people, these are the bad guys, we're the good guys. We're fighting for freedom, they're taking away your freedom. They're going after Social Security and Medicare, we will protect it. I want them to say, and I want them to tell folks that it is the Republicans and Republican-appointed judges, speaking about the State of the Union, folks, that right now there's a judge who is trying to block, and most likely will try to block, abortion pills nationally. So you will not have any chance to get an abortion through these pills. Republicans are doing that. Republicans want to cut the taxes on the rich. Republicans want to increase taxes on the middle class. Call them out. And the gall of Kevin McCarthy is, even as Republicans are calling the rest of us groomers, that is inciting violence against Democrats, Kevin McCarthy is telling Joe Biden, be nice. Don't call MAGA extreme. And what we just found out, and I just texted this to Danielle as we're chatting.
I just saw it.
Speaking of our State of the Union, New York Times report just came out. I'm gonna just quote it, and then I'm gonna pass it over to Danielle. Speaking about their State of the Union, Memphis officer texted photo of Tyre Nichols after beating. The revelation came in Memphis police documents related to the firing of 5 officers who have been charged with the murder in his death, and he texted it to his fellow officers.
I got to tell you that Nicole Wallace asked a really good question the other day. She said, there's all these conversations about Biden staying above the fray. Is there any place in America where we are still above anything? Like, we're all in the sewer. So once again, to say that these police officers, it's just a few bad apples. But we fired some. This is their fucking culture.
Yeah.
This is their police culture. It doesn't matter that they were black. It doesn't matter if they are white. They are blue all the way around. This is their culture. It is a culture of violence that they perpetuate because they are never held accountable for anything that they do. It is a few and far between. I was asked on MSNBC over the weekend, Danielle, do you want Biden to address, right, Tyre Nichols, Keenan Anderson, any of the cases since George Floyd of unarmed men being beaten to death, suffocated to death, tased to death, shot to death? And I said, no, I actually don't want him to say a goddamn thing. They said, why? And I said, because unless you are going to put out an executive order that has teeth, which you can't, unless you are going to make police reform the foundation of your 2024 reelection, which you won't, I don't want to hear your thoughts and prayers. I don't want you to point to the families that should be allowed to grieve in private, but have now become poster parents for police reform because now they're part of a club that they never asked to join in the first fucking place. So am I disgusted by this revelation? Sure. But it's par for the course in American policing that was born out of chattel slavery and has never been able to disassociate itself from it.